To use SQL restaurant data inside of the application instead of our in-memory restaurant data, there's really just one change we need to make, and that's inside of startup.cs. Here inside of configure services, we used to say use in-memory restaurant data whenever you need an iRestaurant data, but now I want to use SQL restaurant data. I also want to make very sure that I change this from add singleton to add scoped. A singleton DB context or a singleton restaurant data would be very bad for the application. Typically, the way you want to use your data access components if you're using the entity framework behind the scenes is to have your services scoped to a particular HTTP request. So every time the framework hands out a SQL restaurant data, it's going to keep handing out the same instance of SQL restaurant data for a single request. When the next request comes in, that might be a new restaurant data. But this allows the DB context that's working behind the scenes to collect all the changes that are needed during a single request. So I now have services.addScoped, and I'm using a SQL restaurant data implementation. I should now be able to save everything, do a build, come out and refresh my application, and all my restaurants are gone. And that's because we're looking at the database now, and the database is completely empty. So let's add a new restaurant. I'm going to add Scott's Pizza back into the application. I'll give this a location of Maryland, set the cuisine to Italian, click Save, and it looks like I've successfully saved a restaurant in the database. Once I'm finished recording, I'm going to go through and add back the other two restaurants, but I should be able to come into my database at Ode Food. Let's go to the restaurants table. I'm going to right-click and say, let's view the data inside of here. And there is my restaurant stored as the first record in the table. I should now be able to add more restaurants, which I'll do offline. I should be able to drill into the details for this restaurant, and I should be able to update this restaurant. The only other operation we need to add here is the ability to delete a restaurant, which we'll do in the next module.